You know, the more I look at you, the more I'm convinced you may be the true face of evil, but that also might be due to the rubber cement. Hello! Welcome to another Crafters Workshop. I'm Jordan. This year for Ren Fair, I decided to do something truly insane, and on top of insisting on hand making my entire outfit that I will be wearing when we go to Ren Fair, I also decided that I was going to make a prop. And I didn't start with a small prop. I decided I was going to make a dragon puppet that I'm going to wear. We're going in like a month. As most of my harebrained schemes that come with crafting happen, I started with a vision. I was already planning on making an outfit, and I was kind of going for like a red and black, a little bit of gold vibe, and I was like, you know what this seems like? You know what this feels like it needs? It needs a dragon puppet. So this year I'm going to the Ohio Renaissance Festival as a dragon tamer. Hopefully, if I get this done in time, I have to get it done in time because otherwise I don't have another costume idea. And God forbid I try to rewear something I wore the previous year. Who would do that? So yes, I have endeavored to build this dragon puppet. So far, I have a head and I have several pattern pieces. And we're going to see how this goes. And I'm going to start out by telling you what I've done so far and kind of the process of how all of this has gone. First things first, I need to say a special thank you to the YouTube channel Keep Drawing Charlie. That's where I bought the pattern for this foam head. I initially saw their video when I was doing research to see like how one would go about doing this. And so I used their YouTube tutorial that they put up. It's 2 hours long. It's very extensive, very, very helpful, as well as they sell the pattern for this dragon head. It's a luck dragon head. It's supposed to be more of like the Chinese dancing puppet dragons. I made a couple modifications and I'm going to tweak it a little bit because I'm looking for more of a D&D dragon, but it was an excellent starting place and a very helpful video tutorial. As well as Rachel Maxey. I don't know her, but I think she's great and I love her videos. She also made a dragon puppet, and so I'm kind of taking some ideas that were in their videos and adding my own and trying to figure out how to work this. Both of those were a really great starting point when researching, trying to figure out how to do this project. The foam puppet head. So this is the top half. It's really large and I haven't put like handhold straps to make it a functional puppet yet. This thing is huge and I have to hold it with two hands if I hold both sides. So this puppet head, this is made out of, it's either 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch upholstery foam, and it is held together by rubber cement and hope. I recommend using a different kind of glue for this if you try this, because the rubber cement was hard. I got a lot of headaches trying to put this together. I did use it in a well-ventilated area. I used it on my porch. I did not use it inside in this basement that I'm in. But trying to glue this thing together for multiple hours at a time, take breaks, and maybe don't use rubber cement. I actually probably went about making the actual puppet head the most difficult way that I could, because that's the only way I know how to do things. When I initially got the pattern, I printed out the pattern, taped everything together, had everything like cut out, and I was thinking, I think that I should try to make a paper mock-up out of this before I cut into the foam, because that sounds like a good idea. So I had already cut out my pattern pieces once, and then traced them all onto more paper and cut those out, and then very quickly realized that like paper, while three-dimensional, is not three-dimensional in the same way that upholstery foam is. So we ran into a little bit of trouble trying to put that together because it was not standing up like it was supposed to when made out of foam. because it was paper and I'm an idiot. But thankfully, those extra pattern pieces came in helpful for when I started doing what I'm doing right now and working on making the puppet skin. Don't like that phrasing. There's a better phrasing for that, but I'm making the covering for the puppet right now. Before I move on to how I'm working on covering this monstrosity, I'm going to give you a little bit of a closer look at the actual puppet head, do like a little 360. I can't open and close the mouth yet, but it will at some point, hopefully. I also need to cut out the eyes. Didn't do that before I glued it together. That would have been smart. We're learning. Okay. But yeah, that is the whole top and bottom jaw before it is covered. And so it's going to be a big old dragon head. And ideally, the plan for this is I want to make it so that my arm is the dragon and then the body is going to look like it's draped across my shoulder and we're going to be best friends. And it's going to be really hot during the Renaissance Fair. I'm just now realizing that this was a good idea. I stand by this decision. But yeah, that is the puppet head and all of its kind of jacked up, rather rough glory. It's going to look better once I cover it. I hope. For the puppet covering, I have a couple of my pattern pieces here for what I've been kind of working with. This is what I've been doing for the last 3 hours this afternoon. So I have been using a combination of the second paper pattern that I cut out in an attempt to make a paper puppet. And then I also have these beauties. I had the puppet head fully constructed, and so I took masking tape and kind of gently laid it along the puppet to get the general shape of some of the pieces that I wanted to be bigger. This is the cheek piece, which is several pieces in the actual puzzle of the foam pattern, but I thought it would translate better when sewing in the actual formation of the sewn part of the puppet. I thought it would translate better to be a larger sewn together piece I've got these darts cut out so that it wraps around the face a little bit more seamlessly. And so some of the pattern pieces were just pulled straight from the puppet with a little bit of modification to add on seam allowance, whereas some of them I made myself out of wrapping paper and masking tape. Woohoo! I also just realized I should probably clarify. This is a letter opener. I thought it would be cool and D&D themed. I'm now realizing that it's without the context of it being a letter opener. It's a cool letter opener, but yeah, I swear to God, it's not a knife. Now, if you thought we were stopping there with pattern making, God no, what do you take me for? I have to make everything more complicated. I cut out a second pattern. So I've cut this out in just some cotton scraps that I had from a previous project because I don't throw any fabric scraps away. But I did buy special nice fabric for this project, and I'm determined not to waste any of it because it was more expensive than I would like to admit. So before I start cutting any of my fancy cool fabric that I bought specifically for this project, I am cutting out a mock-up of this pattern. We're going to see how this goes because this is a non-stretch material and the material that I got is thicker and it's a little bit stretchy. So I'm hoping that if anything, that'll just give us some leeway for when my measurements go wrong. But yeah, the paper patterns that I just showed you with the paper and the masking tape and wrapping paper, I then went and traced those onto, can't really see this very well with one hand. I went and traced those onto my scrap fabric to make all my pattern pieces, and I've just been kind of loosely pinning them on the shell of my puppet head to make sure that they fit and it's going to be the size that I want and the look that I want and make sure everything's good. And the next step is going to be the whole assembling. I'm going to have to cut out all of my pieces from my good fabric, sew it together, and hope to God it fits on the puppet head, because I can't do this twice. I might be able to. I might have enough fabric to do this twice, but I still have to make the dragon body, which I don't have a plan for yet. So we are going to pray and hope that I don't mess this up, and if I do, it's savable. I don't know if I made it obvious or not, but this video is going to be one of, hopefully, a series of me trying to get ready for Ren Fair in time. We've got the dragon puppet stuff that's going on. We've got actual costume things that I will be doing. I've still got to make, the plan is to make a shirt, a like stays corset vest thing, and then I don't know what I'm doing for the pants yet. We're going to figure that out. And yes, I know I have already done a video about making a pirate shirt and corset stay vest things. I am a person of limited means. I'm learning. And it's going to be a different stays corset vest thing. It's going to be the same shirt pattern, though. I really like that shirt pattern. It's all rectangles. And I will be making a video talking about how to make that, because it's actually a very good beginning sewing pattern. So if you're looking for a first thing to make, or you're getting ready for Ren Fair, pirate shirt. It's only squares. It's so easy. So keep an eye out for that. Either that has already come out and I made this notice for absolutely no reason. If it has already come out, go watch it. Or it is coming out in the future and go watch it. So that is a 6-foot long dragon body, sans wings and legs. And this is a dragon puppet head. Some developments have been made since last we spoke on this particular project. He now has skin. I don't like calling it skin, but he now has some kind of covering, and he also has the inside of his mouth. He works as a puppet now. That's the bright spot of this project. I'm going to be completely transparent. I was very excited about starting this project, and I'm still very excited about finishing it. However, this is a very real side of crafting that we don't really talk a whole lot about when we're doing these kinds of videos, because we want to show you, like anybody that does crafting and stuff, you want to see the cool finished product, and we just want to talk about all the stuff that is cool about it and all the things that went right, and look at this cool thing I made. However, inevitably, there will be a certain factor of, oh dear God, what have I done? What am I doing? How do I fix this? And this project has been the epitome of that. This is my first time making a puppet, and so I went in having watched an obsessive amount of videos of how Muppets are made, as well as the video from the person I bought this head pattern from. And I only watched part of it to see how to make the head. So the rest of this has been a learning process, and a very valuable learning process, but also a very, very frustrating learning process. So the bright spot, I have the head. He still needs eyes, he still needs eyelids, I may make him horns, but for the most part, this is my pride and joy. I'm so proud of actually having a functional Muppet head. He's not Muppet, he's not trademarked, he's not legally a Muppet, but he's my Muppet and I love him. Additionally, he does now have a body. So this giant sock thing has been the largest point of contention and the biggest source of my anguish and tears for the last several weeks. I actually had to put him down and walk away and work on another aspect of my project. I made my shirt, and there's also going to be a video, I think, coming out before this one about my failure attempt to make pants. That was an experience. So this is the body for my dragon. Now he looks kind of cool. He's over 6 feet long. He's got a tail. It's his little underbelly. And he does have wings. The wings were an experience. This is the 5th idea that I've had for how to get these to work. Third actual practical attempt of doing them. Initially, you will notice, so the inside is the nice red that matches his little underbelly. The outside is this cool drapey lace, and it's not stitched on the bottom. I was hoping for like a cool, like, moving, flowy fabric type thing. There has had to be a lot of adjusting on the fly for this. Initially, these wings were made out of the underbelly fabric, as well as the same black stretch sport material that the rest of his body is made out of. However, I have found throughout the making of this project, with sewing together the covering for the head as well as trying to make the body, I picked the 2 worst kinds of fabric that I could have picked to make my first puppet. Usually my motto is form over function, and unfortunately that motto has bitten me quite hard. It came back to bite me in the ass, and it has been a pain. So I picked this cool, like, stretchy sport fabric and this awesome, like, red stretchy velvet material. Both of these like to move, and both of these like to slide, and neither of these like to be stretched in the same direction. So in the process of trying to make these wings, I had cut the wing fabric from the same pattern from these 2 different kinds of fabrics. And so when I cut it, they were in fact the same size and shape as each other. However, in the process of trying to sew them, I could never actually get the sides to match up and come together. So I had these grand plans of making these wings that were articulated, and I was going to sew boning channels for, I'm blanking on it because I've been staring at this thing for so long, zip ties. That's what the wings are made of. I was going to do this grand thing with zip ties and boning channels, and it was going to be super cool. He doesn't need wings because the wings are going to be how he hangs on to my clothing. Because we actually transitioned from a dragon to kind of like a wyvern type deal. He doesn't have arms, he just has the wings, and it's going to look cool. God, I hope. But yeah, now his wings are less bony, they're kind of more bendy. You can see the zip ties, which I am coming to terms with. That is not the look that I had intended. However, it is the look that we have, and it is the look that we're going with. So if anyone asks, they're bones. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it. So right now, the next steps are I am working on building his legs right now and his little feet. Those are going to be the other points of contact for when he's hanging onto my back for when I'm walking around. I have unfortunately found that these magnets are not as strong as I had wished. So instead of having few small points of contact, I am now going to have many small points of contact across the dragon and my body, so that hopefully he does not fall off of me while we're walking around at the Renaissance Fair. The other thing that I may end up adding horns to the actual head. We'll see how much fabric I have left and how much of my sanity is intact. I also still have to paint his eyes and attach his eyes. I'm doing that with ping pong balls. I'm going to be painting it, and then I don't know how I'm attaching them, but they will end up attached to the puppet. And then I will have I'm going to drape some fabric over it so there's eyelids so it doesn't just look like googly eye Cookie Monster Muppet on the puppet head. So that's kind of where we're at. This project did not turn out the way that I had envisioned and the way that I had planned. However, that's okay, because this is my first puppet that I have ever built, and I am already taking notes for what to do for the next one. So hopefully the next installment of this video is not me crying on the floor surrounded by puppet parts. Hopefully it is me with a fully realized dragon puppet that I can wear to the Renaissance Fair. We'll see. First of all, I don't have the depth of field to properly show off the majesty of Steve, because my camera's here and this doesn't go very far back. But I'm going to turn and see if you can see. He does in fact cling onto my back, and he hangs over my shoulder, and his mouth opens. I just felt the puppet mouth open, drop, pop. Steve still needs some work. He was done enough to go to his first Renaissance Fair. However, he only made it a select number of hours through his first Renaissance Fair before he had to go take a car nap, because he started falling apart, which is what happens when you wear your very first puppet that you make to the Renaissance Fair. But it's all good. Steve got a good couple, I think I wore him for 5 hours. So he did get to hang around at the Renaissance Fair and have fun. But as you can see, yeah, he just hangs on. These are magnets. I need to get stronger magnets. That was the big lesson to take away from this whole project, because these are not very strong, and I paid for that fact in the middle of the festival. So before we go into the things that we learned from this process, I'm just going to take a moment and revel in the fact that I completed a frickin' puppet. He is officially, he's over 6 feet long. From the top of the neck down to the tail. I didn't measure how long with the head attached, but he's over 6 feet long. He is taller than I am when he's laid out, and I'm pretty sure his wingspan is pretty close to also 6 feet long. This was a massive undertaking, and even though this has been a major learning process and I'm already taking notes for what I'm doing differently for the next one, I could not be more thrilled with how this turned out. I think I'm sometime soon, because I kind of want to take him to ColossalCon this year. I think he's gonna get horns, just because I feel like he needs something up here. He needs some cool looking horns. I've still got some of this red fabric left over, so I may sculpt some horns and then cover it in that red and give him some horns. But yeah, I made a freaking puppet, guys. This took well over 6 months, and much of my blood, sweat, and tears are in this beautiful 6 foot long dragon. But I made a puppet all by myself. I mean, I did the pattern I mentioned earlier is from, I'm gonna have to link it. I think it's from Keep Drawing Charlie is the channel that I got the head pattern for. But the rest of this, all me. I made the pattern for the body and the legs, and I cannot express how freaking cool it is to see this thing come to life. I love him. So now we get to the learning portion of the things. Despite my absolute elation at the fact that I successfully built a very large puppet to wear to the Renaissance Fair, he is not without flaws. Like I said, I'm already taking notes for what to do differently for the next one. And this has been an excellent learning experience, because there are definitely things that I would do differently if I were to start this project over from scratch. First of all, I used the wrong kind of foam for the head. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before when I'm going over the construction of the head, but I bought really thick upholstery foam, and I should have been using EVA foam or Warbla, because it's so hard to work with and rubber cement does not like sticking to it. And so the next time I do this, I'm buying the correct type of foam, and not just going with what I could find and what I think is right. I'm gonna listen to the instructions and actually buy the foam that I need to buy. The next thing that I would definitely do differently is I have to find a better way for him to be on me. The initial plan, and I'm not wearing it right now because it's kind of unwieldy to get into the entire costume and then out of the entire costume, and I can just put him on over a t-shirt. This t-shirt is not built to withstand 6 feet of dragon hanging off the back of it with a magnet. I did build a garment that was a little better suited to holding the weight of it. I made, they're not boned, but I made a set of stays with a skirt attached that was the bulk of the costume. And that held up a little bit better because it was tighter and the fabric was stiffer, so it wouldn't move. However, the fabric was thicker, so I had even more trouble with the magnets than I'm having right now because the magnets didn't want to stick to each other through the thick fabric. So I had a lot of issues, not walking around surprisingly, but when we were like just sitting, the magnets had the tendency to pop off and go everywhere. So I think I would connect the amount of, I think I would increase the amount of connection points that I have of the puppet to me, or I would build some kind of harness to keep him more securely on my body for the next time, just for ease of movement and transportation, because also it was so hard to try to put these magnets on and take them off in the parking lot of the Renaissance Fair, because of course we were observing the time-honored tradition of getting dressed in the parking lot outside of the fair. So yeah, there are people that put on a lot of crazy props and costume parts for the Ren Fair, but there is a specific brand of crazy when you're trying to magnet a dragon puppet to your own back by yourself in the parking lot. It's not glamorous at all. And honestly, I was anticipating my arm hurting from holding his head up the entire day. I'm pretty sure I threw my shoulder out trying to magnet him to my back. So for the next time, if I were ever to do a full body puppet like this again, I would definitely change up how I have him attached to my person, just for ease of transportation. This next thing is mostly about fabric choice, because even though I think he looks pretty cool now, he's got the sick little red underbelly and the wings and everything, and it's all red and black and very groovy. I think I mentioned this in the segment whenever I was making the wings. I don't remember because that was over a month ago, because as I said before, I've been doing this for the better part of 6 months. My fabric choice for this project was not optimal. I went for what I thought looked cool, as well as what was on the discount bargain rack, as opposed to thoroughly researching what fabrics I should have been using for puppet making. So the black material that's on the top is this like stretch. It's not spandex, but it's some kind of moisture wicking sport fabric. It's mega stretchy. It's like this woven stretchy material, impossible to sew. It was so slippery, and that, coupled with its best friend stretch velvet for the rest of the thing, just turned out to be a very not good time for me sewing wise. And this is coming from someone, I usually don't sew with pins. I'm insane. I run things through the sewing machine, and kind of with my method of brute forcing things and seams to work and just kind of eyeballing my seam allowance, unless I absolutely have to, I usually don't pin things together. I kind of slap it together and hope it works, and I make adjustments on the fly on my sewing machine. Even with trying to pin this together, I couldn't get it to match up. I would cut things at the exact same time with the same pattern pieces, and then I would go to sew it together and it would not match. It's like I was cutting completely different pattern pieces and trying to stick them together, because there was no making things go together smoothly. So there was a lot of adjusting on the fly on the sewing machine, and like having to cut things in the middle of sewing. Just not a good time. Do not recommend using like stretch velvet and stretch lycra to make a puppet. Not my finest hour, not my finest decision, and I have learned I will not be using that. I will be using felt like a normal person, or fleece. That's also recommended by like the official Muppet puppet builders. So I'll be listening to that next time and not going with, ooh, shiny and cheap. Now, I ran into this problem, and I genuinely don't understand how it's a problem considering how I am, but I'm a weird contradiction to myself, so it kind of makes sense. I didn't draw out a single aspect of this design whatsoever, and I think that played to my detriment. Which is wild, because I am an artist. I do draw, I do digital art, I do traditional art. I know how to sketch things. And logically, the first step to this whole process should have been sketching out the idea and figuring out exactly how I wanted this to look on paper before I started making anything. I didn't do that for any part of this. I made this thing on the fly. I made my costume on the fly. I know how to make a pirate shirt, so I just made a pirate shirt. My hubris kind of came to get me on this one, because I think that it definitely would have helped. There was a certain point in the middle of this project where I was just trying to figure out what still needed to be done. But since I didn't have an actual plan and I just had a vague idea of how this was going to come together, I found it extra frustrating because there wasn't a list or an illustration that I could refer back to. It was just me going, I think he needs legs. I don't know how many, but I think he needs legs. And then trying to make legs from scratch. So I have learned that I need to come up with a drawn out plan, or at least a written out plan first, and not just put things in the sewing machine, because that is not how we make things. I mean, it is. It worked. It worked for these purposes. But Jesus Christ, it was a bad idea. No plan, bad plan. Don't do it. I think the last thing that I can say in definitive, or at least the last thing that I'm thinking of off the top of my head right now, because as we just discussed, I have not planned anything, which is such an oxymoron. I went to school to be a producer, and I like making production books, but when it comes to my personal projects, I just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I didn't write a script for this video, as you can probably tell. The last thing that I will say on this, I thought I gave myself enough time for this project, but upon looking back at the production process for this project, I did not give myself enough time. I did say that I've been working on this for the better part of 6 months. I think that I should have started planning this at the top of the year if I was going to do this, and worked from there. I started working on this sometime, I want to say in June. It is now October, late October. So I have been working on this for the better part of this year. However, I still don't think it was enough time to learn the skills that I needed for this, as well as do everything that I wanted to do with him, just because I enjoy the way that he turned out and how he looked for the actual fair. But as I mentioned, I want to give him horns. I had grand plans at some point of sewing scales on at some point. I wasn't going to like scale the entire thing, but I did have intentions of getting like, you can buy like obsidian chip beads or like glass beads that I thought looked very cool and scaly, that I was going to sew on in patterns across the dragon, and I simply did not have time for that. Once we got towards the ends of the process, I started looking at this and being like, well, since I don't have a plan, what can I cut? Because I had a general idea of how I wanted this to turn out and how I wanted the finished product to look, but it was only a general idea. So initially he was supposed to have 4 legs. The legs were supposed to hook onto my shoulders as well as my hips instead of the wings like it stands right now. There was a certain point where I was like, I don't have enough foam, I don't have enough fabric, I don't have enough time. he's only going to have 2 legs and 2 little feet. And so that is what's attaching him. You can't see it. Dang it! He has a leg that is attached to my shirt and my hips, and that's what holds him onto the back. And then he kind of turned into more of a wyvern, I don't know how to pronounce that, I only read that word. He turned into a different type of dragon because I decided he doesn't have arms, he only has the wings, and so the wings are going to be what's holding him onto my shoulders. And so if I would have had a full year to prep and plan, not even a full year because it's October, if I would have had that extra couple of months to thoroughly plan and figure out exactly what I wanted to do, I think I may have been better off, because I was working on this up until the day before Ren Fair. I finished him at, little peek behind the curtain, I finished him at 3:30 in the afternoon Saturday before we went to Ren Fair on Sunday. I had an even stricter time limit because that afternoon I had to leave the house by 4:30 because I was stage managing a show at our local theater, and had to be there for the last performance. So I didn't even have the full Saturday to work on him. I had a doctor's appointment in the morning, and then I worked on him and got everything finished. What I did that day was I painted his eyes and sewed them on, and I also sewed on his neck and figured out how to get them all connected. Finalized my magnet placement and everything. But at that point I was like, okay, this has to be done because I'm not going to be back in the house until after midnight because of the show tonight, and then I am leaving for the Renaissance Fair at 7:30 tomorrow morning. So time is of the essence, and I think next time I'm already planning my next puppet project because I'm a crazy person. Next time I do something of this scale, I am definitely not setting the expectation that they are going to appear at any one event, or if I am, it's going to be one that I know of well in advance. Like, we go to ColossalCon every year, so I will know as soon as one ColossalCon passes, that's when I need to start planning my next puppet, if that's what I'm gonna do. Because I really think time was of the essence, and I just didn't give myself enough of it, despite the fact that I thought, oh, I'll be fine. It's in October. No. So that, good people of the internet, brings us to the end of a video that has been 6 months in the making. I made a frickin' puppet, and you can too. It'll take some time, and it'll take a lot of determination and a lot of breakdowns on the floor, but you can make a frickin' puppet. I will make sure to link in the description the video where I got a lot of my resources from. Like I said, I did a lot of this myself. However, I am not without inspiration. I did buy the pattern for this dragon head from the channel Keep Drawing Charlie. I will link that video where they go through the whole, they also made this puppet, a different version of this puppet, but they also made this puppet head. So I will link that in the description below, as well as, I always plug her, and I don't actually know her, I'm just a fan. Rachel Maxey also made a wearable dragon puppet, again in a different form than I did, but hers was also remarkably helpful, if not just for the motivation of, okay, I can do this. She did this in a shorter time span than I did, and it looked freaking awesome. So yeah, if you really, really want to, go build a puppet, because you absolutely can, and it comes out super cool looking, and now I have a friend. So yes, this is Steve. Steve still has things that he needs done, but we love Steve, and I'm very proud of Steve, and I'm very proud of me. So go make a puppet. So everyone say hello to Steve. I finished him. Oh, let's go through the rest of the process of how I made this dude, and he premiered at his first Ren Fair this past weekend.